Now let's pivot from the DCU, and it's funny. We have kind of a grab bag of a lot of different topics here. We have Disney, and then we have a couple DCU films, and this will be the first of 2 Lord of the Rings topics that we're going to be talking about today. This one, obviously, I'll be talking about the Rings of Power episode 4 in just a little bit, but we have some other Lord of the Rings news to talk about. And this one makes me kind of happy, makes me pretty happy, but also a little bit sad at the same time, and I'll explain why in just a second. So, we have long been wondering when the Lord of the Rings would return to the big screen. And I'm not talking about the War of Rohirrim, which is coming out in just a couple months, I believe, or even a couple weeks. I think it's coming out this month. Anyways, I could be wrong. It's coming out before the end of 2024. But, we were wondering, right? Because I think most other franchises, like Harry Potter, will be... I suppose Harry Potter's not returning to the big screen for a good while, but we had Fantastic Beasts, and now it's going to be an HBO show. But Lord of the Rings, I mean, one of the quintessential, you have, your Star Wars, your Star Treks, but in quote unquote nerddom, it's Harry Potter, it's Star Trek, it's Star Wars, Marvel, DC, and then it's Lord of the Rings, right? Not in that order. I'm just saying, included in that list of greats is Lord of the Rings. It's just a fantastic series of books, fantastic show. I actually, kind of coincidentally, not even... I guess sort of related to Rings of Power, just because I had been seeing it recently, but also just because I've been meaning to reread those books for a long time, have actually just started to reread Fellowship of the Ring, and we'll talk about that a lot, actually, surprisingly a lot, when we talk about episode 4. You'll know what I'm talking about if you've seen episode 4 of Rings of Power, but we're not here to talk about that right now. There is now confirmed to be a new Lord of the Rings film coming out, live action, I believe, pretty sure. Peter Jackson is going to be on the executive team, which is really exciting. Obviously, you want the visionaries behind the original Lord of the Rings films to be on board. I think Andy Serkis is going to be directing because this film is called The Hunt for Gollum. Lord of the Rings, The Hunt for Gollum. Not really what I would have made my next Lord of the Rings, big return, epic return to the big screen. I would not have made it Hunt for Gollum. I mean, I like Gollum as a character. He's a pretty complicated guy. If you can even call him a guy, I don't even know, creature, person. He's a person. If you know the Lord of the Rings backstory, then you know. It's not, what I would have made my next Lord of the Rings film about, but, maybe they have a really great story they want to tell. Speculation on my part is that it will probably be that period of time between when Gollum lost the ring and when he reappeared I think at the beginning or the end of Fellowship of the Ring or beginning of Two Towers. I think that this will probably be that period, especially when... Because what is the hunt for Gollum, right? Well, I like I mentioned, I've just been rereading the Fellowship of the Ring. I've seen all the movies, of course, but there's a period of time where, Frodo is about to leave the Shire, and Gandalf kind of comes back and he says, I found Gollum, I got information out of him. Because after he lost the ring to Bilbo, he then kind of lost his mind a little bit, and the Nazgul, the Black Riders, they got to him, right? And they kind of tortured the word Shire out of him. It's that famous scene in Lord of the Rings where he's screaming, Shire, Baggins, and I think that I believe, at least, that the Hunt for Gollum will probably, because, spoiler alert for Return of the King, one of the greatest films of all time, he's dead. I don't know, if they revive him somehow, and it's post Return of the King, I don't even know what to say anymore. And I don't think so, in light of what I'm about to talk about, because, the news here is about a character that also is not in Middle-earth any longer, in canon at least. But anyways, yeah, so I think my speculation is that this film is going to take place in that period of time, sort of in the middle of book one, I suppose, between The Hobbit and then, the first couple chapters of Fellowship of the Ring, where Gollum is sort of on the run. And then I'm sure it'll end sort of him being found by the Nazgul or him being found by Gandalf or whatever. Now, speaking of Gandalf, if that is the case, then there is a pretty, I suppose, narratively satisfying way in which you can get Gandalf to come back if the hunt for Gollum involves people hunting for Gollum. Because when Gandalf left the Shire after Bilbo departs for his adventure in Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf then, stays with Frodo for a little bit, but then departs very quickly and comes back a couple times before Frodo heads off. And in between one of those times is when he is looking for Gollum, right? So could this be Gandalf's hunt for Gollum? Well, Ian McKellen, one of the greatest actors of all time. I love him as Magneto. I love him as Gandalf. He is amazing, 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 amazing. Ian McKellen was speaking with a British magazine, and he had this to say. And I'm going to read out a quote that Ian McKellen said. So, quote, "I've just been told that there are going to be more films and Gandalf will be involved." Okay, so that's interesting. This is me interjecting. That's interesting, right? Because it looks like whether or not Ian McKellen himself will be involved, Gandalf himself will be involved, and we'll see what that kind of leads to. But let me continue on with the quote. So Gandalf will be involved, and they hope that I'll be playing him. McKellen told British Magazine The Big Issue. When? Question mark. I don't know. What the script is? Question mark. It's not written yet, so they better be quick. Now, I mentioned that this makes me a little bit sad. It makes me a little bit sad just purely because Ian McKellen is not getting any younger. I would have loved to have seen him, spoiler alert, in Deadpool and Wolverine. He did not show up there. I really would have loved to have seen him there, but he unfortunately did not make an appearance. That's all good. You know, he's getting older. He just fell off a stage, I believe. Let's give the man a break. He's been just an incredible actor for so long. So long. But you know, with a little bit of de-aging technology, and Gandalf is supposed to be old and you know, wise and everything like that. Who's to say that Gandalf couldn't be in this film, right? I remember watching, I believe it was The Desolation of Smaug, the second Hobbit film, and Christopher Lee showed up as Saruman, which was, you know, he clearly was kind of getting up there. I believe he was 90-something years old. I don't think Ian McKellen is that old yet, but getting there. But they kind of they accommodated everything to make it comfortable. You can tell Christopher Lee was really getting up there. It wasn't the same guy who played Count Dooku and Saruman in the original trilogy, but it was still just really nice to see him again. So it looks like Gandalf will have a role in the Hunt for Gollum, and it looks like it'll be a pretty substantial one, you know, more than just, you know, what Christopher Lee did for the Hobbit film. And it looks like, you know, if they get the script in time, because again, just the sad reality of life is that Ian McKellen is not getting any younger. And so even, you know, God forbid he passes away, but, you know, it's just, you know, if he's still with us, hopefully for many years to come. But he, you know, I just think the more time passes, the less it will be appealing to him to kind of have to sit in the makeup chair for that long and, you know, wear all the robes and do all that kind of stuff. So we'll see about that. But if he does come back, I'd be very excited for it. I'm still a little bit iffy on the premise of this film. And again, it's all speculation. No one's really said anything about what the actual premise of this film is. But, you know, I would just speculate that it's because Gandalf is going to be involved, that it's going to be that period just at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring. But we'll have to see about that. So let me know in the comments down below if you're excited for Hunt for Gollum, and if you'd be more excited or less excited if Ian McKellen came back as Gandalf. Let me know in the comments down below.